I had thought we had seen the absolute worst of Esther McVeigh. I'd thought with all the stories of universal credits, with the number of people who have committed suicide because of pressure from the job centre, the number of people who had literally dropped dead at work because the job centre had refused to accept the doctor's note saying they were not fit for work, that there was nothing worse to come out. I was wrong. So Steve Topple, writing for the Canary, wrote the article, "The DWP is forcing loved ones to pay dead relatives' rent." Let that sink in for a second. Okay, let's go through it. The Department of Work and Pensions is forcing family members to pay weeks of rent for their deceased relatives by stopping the universal credit payments that would have covered it. So not only do you have to have the grief and the heartache of losing a family member, but you then get a government body telling you that you have to pay 3 weeks or up to 3 weeks of their rent. How much more monstrous can one human being get? How much harder do you really want to make things for people who are already struggling? Now, this all came about during parliamentary questions. It was brought up from SNP Member of Parliament Ronnie Cornwall. He had asked the DWP how many universal credit applicants have died during the period that their application was being assessed, and as a result have received a zero payment for the days during that period when they were alive. Now, there's a bit of back and forth, but the Minister of Employment had admitted there had been 1,200 cases since universal credits were rolled out in 2016. Cornwall fantastically rebutted this. He did not take it lying down. I will leave a link to this article down below. I fully recommend you go through it. But essentially, there are more and more cases coming out where people are saying their loved ones have died during this application process. And as a result, the DWP have claimed that they have died before the application results, so they don't have to pay anything at all. We pay taxes for a reason. We elect a government for a reason. Esther McVeigh is fundamentally sick. She constantly protects and promotes the universal credit system that does not work. And in addition to that, in addition to forcing families into poverty, in addition to boasting that we now have more people in work, despite the fact that half the people who have full-time employment in this country are homeless. A recent statistic that came out that quite frankly turned my stomach. A lot of people are surviving because they have 2 jobs, and at least one of them is a full-time job. While Esther McVeigh is already a multi-millionaire, taking home at least £77,000 a year, and yet there's no money to help a grieving family. UK politics, the guy on that channel recently put up a video, nothing at all to do with this, completely off topic, something about an EU law that's coming in that could potentially make things difficult for him. He brought up that it wasn't worth being part of the EU, that all these protections that we get are completely unnecessary, especially given the trade-off. The idea that we need the EU to protect our human rights is laughable because we live in a civilized country. That's not civilized. Forcing grieving families to pay anything because their loved one died during an application process when they were on hard times is not civil. And it is exactly why anyone saying they want to get rid of human rights should never be given a position of authority. Now, calling Esther McVey names, while I would agree with most of those names, isn't necessarily going to resolve this. But certainly get on Twitter and tell her exactly how wrong she is. This is not something that can stand. Esther McVey won. I'll leave that down below as well. Don't send abuse, don't call her names, but tell her where she's wrong. And ask her if she's proud of a system that punishes people because they're in a bad time.